Hi, I'm Matthew Herzberg, and this is the Myopia Mindset. This is a podcast all about motivation, inspiration, and education on your path to success with myopia management. And for this episode, I have a very special guest, none other than Dr. Nick Despotidis. He is a fellow and a board member of the American Academy of Orthokeratology and Myopia Control. He speaks extensively on Ortho-K and myopia management. He has written about the subject. He has done a TED Talk about the subject. And he is the driving force behind Supercharge Your Practice, which has been an absolute game changer for so many docs who are looking to level up their Ortho-K or myopia management practice. Nick, it is my honor. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you, Matt. So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
This is kind of like a reunion of sorts for us because you were my favorite guest for my old show, The Corrected View with the AAOMC. We had our practice management series.
Yes. Yep.
So before we get started, Nick, if anybody has any questions for you about anything we've talked about on this episode, what's the best way to get in touch with you on the internet?
Email is the best way, and my email is pretty straightforward. It's DRD or Dr. D at eyecareprofessionals.com. And they could also find out more information about me on superchargeyourpractice.com. That's the speaking website.
All right, excellent. And if you have any questions about this episode for me, it's myopiamindset@gmail.com. If you're looking to support the podcast, myopiamindset.substack.com. You'll get extended versions of every episode and a monthly bonus episode from us. And you'll be helping us to promote myopia management. It's the greatest thing ever. We want more ECPs to be doing it. All right. So Nick, let's get started. I can't think of another member of our community that I have quoted or referenced more than you over the 20 years that I've been in it. I have said, well, this is how Nick Despotidis does it, or have you heard of this, or have you seen Nick talk, or Nick covers this in this lecture, or I send them a link to your TEDx talk. Why don't we start with what does your practice look like right now? Because I think you have like the dream scenario for a practice. So walk us through it.
Yeah, my practice today looks very different than when I started it cold over 30 years ago. And for those in attendance that are unaware of my story, basically, we started out as a primary care practice, like most of you out there. Opened up cold with my partner, Barry Tan, in 1988. So we're going almost on 40 years. Hard to believe. And like most of us out there, we did eye exams, soft contact lenses, and glasses. And that was our bread and butter. And to be honest with you, Matthew, we did very well with that. But we weren't necessarily happy. We somehow were astute enough to know that the majority of our income, our gross income, was coming from commodities like glasses and soft contact lenses, not necessarily from fee-for-services like eye exams or specialty care, like myopia management. It wasn't called that at the time. We called it orthokeratology, nor vision therapy or any other service that we provided. Again, it was mainly from the glasses and the soft contacts we sold at the time. About 1999, we were dabbling in Ortho-K. My children were nearsighted. That's how I became interested in this subspecialty. And it wasn't covered by insurances. There was some dabbling out there, some word of mouth that Ortho-K worked. And I guess around 2001, 2002, we started to go to this meeting that your dad actually spearheaded. I forgot the name of it. It wasn't called Vision by Design. Do you remember the name of it?
It was called Reshaping the World. Was that it?
It was something else. It was
okay.
GOS,
the
Global Ortho-K Symposium.
Gotcha.
And maybe your dad didn't organize that, but certainly he was a big part of it.
Okay.
And I went to this meeting. I think it was in Toronto. I forgot where it was. I was very excited because I was doing about one fit a month, maybe, 12 a year. We were dabbling in it. But I saw the potential of this. I saw it in my own kids. So I actually fit my children long before Ortho-K was FDA approved in the United States. And I saw the power of it. I also knew that I didn't know enough about it. I was fitting the lenses empirically. So I remember specifically going to the GOS meetings. One year was canceled because of SARS, but I really was excited at the time because I was around like-minded people. I felt I was on the cutting edge of something very different. There was other reasons also. 9/11 happened. That something bad happened in my practice where we went from a very busy primary care practice, and it just died because of something called anthrax that just happened to affect my community. So now fast forward 25 years from there, I solely practice myopia management, and having done so for, again, 20 years. That means that every day of the week that I practice, I'm seeing myopia management practice. And it's grown to the part where I have two partners who also practice myopia management full time. But the practice is not solely myopia management. It's multidisciplinary. We do vision therapy. It's also a big part of our practice. My partner, Barry, who we started together almost 40 years ago, he runs the vision therapy clinic in our practice. And we also have a strong primary care clinic that probably looks like many of you out there. And my partner, Ivan Lee, is in charge of that. We don't sell soft contact lenses. We don't dispense any soft contact lenses. We do have a dispensary for eyeglasses, and that's because it's ingrained in us for the past 30 years. So when you see our practice and fast forward, we have probably a very unique practice in that we have a large center for vision therapy, larger for myopia management, and very large primary care. So we have 4 ODs that are partners, myself, Dr. Tannen, who started the practice, Dr. Noah, who joined us about 7 years ago, that's Barry's son, and Ivan Lee, who joined me about 25 years ago. We also trained 2 residents. So 6 ODs in this large 6,000-foot practice. That's what it looks like today.
Right. And when you hear that there are 3 doctors doing myopia management at your practice, maybe the audience instantly is like, you must be working all the time, every day of the week. But you guys have it divided up accordingly because you have specialized in another part of that's just as important, which is the practice management aspect of it, which you've learned from the days of before myopia management, where you guys were getting killed, super busy, but not making that much more money. So walk us through that more, because I know how your practice looks, but tell the audience, because you're not, you take appropriate time off, you're not constantly in the office. It's a well-oiled machine.
That's a very good point, Matt. Is in 2000, we were busy meaning 6 weeks booked out. I was seeing 4 to 6 patients an hour. We're very automated, and we were very busy. But as you pointed out, even though our gross was high, we were not as profitable. And that's number one, working way too hard. And at the end of the day, sometimes Barry and I wouldn't take a check, I'm embarrassed to say. And then when Ivan joined, it just happened, the bottom fell out because anthrax. He sold his practice to join ours, and he, with us, helped grow a different type of practice. I also want to thank Gary Gerber, the founder of Power Practice and Treehouse Eyes, because he was a consultant at the time and says, guys, you are working way too hard, man. And, if you know Gary, he has a way of really getting under your skin. And he says, listen, you guys, you got to learn to work smart, not hard. And since that time, I would say 1999, 2000, I only see patients 3 days a week. Barry, the same. Ivan now the same, almost about 4 days a week for Ivan. And you're right. The other days, we work on the practice, but not in the practice. So today, my practice, actually 2 doctors are seeing Ortho-K patients today. It's a Thursday, and I'm working from home, but I'm working on my practice. So yes, that did a few things for us. It made us much happier. I've been practicing now, as I reported, almost 40 years. It'll be 40 years next year, and I'm extremely happy. I'm not burnt out, nor is Barry. The biggest stress we have is we want to continue practicing in our 60s, 70s, even 80s, and that's stressful in itself for our younger partners. How is this going to look? The other thing is we focus on the profitability of the practice so we can have a staff that gets paid well. We provide good care for our patients. And as owners, we get reimbursed for all the effort we put into giving first-class care to our patients.
Right. And one of the things I love most about the way that y'all practice is it is not so much the treatment as it is the one providing it. The doctor is unique. The doctor is different. We live in an age where, certain interests, certain aspects are trying to marginalize optometry and make it look like every optometrist is the same, no matter where you go. But at your practice, the way that y'all do things is we are different. And you make that impact. You said to me once, and I hope I'm not misquoting you, but on one of the practice management Q&As you and I did together, you had said that within it very quickly you can figure out what lens you want to fit the patient with. You spend a lot more time reinforcing this idea that I am the best eye care provider for your child. You are in good hands here. We are going to take care of you. We are going to address this problem. And I'm hoping you can speak more to that, because the practices that I've been in, after I left AAOMC, I got a really good education at the ground level, being in practices that were not at the Nick Despotidis level, not at the Carrie Herzberg level, that they were struggling. And the places where they were cutting corners were aspects of that you speak to directly, where I was like, no, you have to spend time with these parents. You need to reinforce this aspect. So how did you come to that conclusion? And talk a little about how your practice does that specifically.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the paradigm for us shifted when we accepted a lot of plans. That's why we were very busy. And like you said, you become very homogeneous once you're in the insurance accepting book or website, and patients find out that you do like to talk and care more than just their eyes. Word gets out and you get busier and busier and busier. But the way plans work is you join a plan, so they send you patients, but they don't reimburse you more for any higher level care that you provide. You make funds by coding and billing and volume. The formula is pretty straightforward. So we learned that although it was working to increase our gross revenue, we weren't happy, Matt. And I want to make a point that I was only 12 years into practice, and I was talking about retirement. I was only maybe at best 38, at the time, at most. And all I kept on thinking, 50, 55, I'm out of here. Now I'm 65, and my biggest fear is getting out. So why did I make that transition? We knew volume doesn't work. We got very systematized, very automated, and I could see 4 patients quickly and sufficiently, and I would say ethically. However, my patients were waiting in the waiting room. My staff wasn't happy, and I wasn't happy. I just felt I wasn't practicing the way I wanted to. So you're right. The paradigm shifted. I think a lot of ODs think busier is better. If I could get 10 Ortho-K fits a week or a month, I'll be so happy. And I remember actually being on your father's podcast, and you were somehow organizing that. And both of us were setting goals. This is 25 years ago, of maybe 10 a month was my goal. And I said, if I could reach 10 a month, and you know what? Goal setting is very powerful. I reached that goal, and I realized that I was busy, but not necessarily happy. So the key is not to be busy. It's really to be happy. And what that translates for me in my practice is, like you said, spending time with my patient so they refer friends and family to my practice. We call that quality referrals. So the way I've learned that, you're right, I've been doing this a long time. So my first CRT fit in 2002, I think took me 3 hours. I don't even know what I was doing. I had the trial set, landing zone was tight, so I loosened it. Now the return zone was a little too steep. And to make a long story short, I was in there for 3 hours, but like any new graduate will tell you, their refraction also at one time may have taken 2 to 3 hours. So right now, it literally takes me seconds to do the fitting aspect of the consultation. I just discussed this with Maria Liu, who practices in a very different setting than me in California, but yet is equally successful. And we both set aside time for a consultation, 1 hour. And that hour, just like you said, I need 5 minutes to fit the lens pretty effectively. And any changes that I need to make in follow-up visits take me equally a short time, just because of my experience. However, if I only take 10, 15 minutes with the patient, I've lost a golden opportunity to have that patient become what I call a raving fan. You may call them a social influencer. I'm not the influencer. They go out and they tell parents, hey, Dr. D is different. Yeah, but I go to this person or that person. It's really the same way I picked an orthodontist for my children. I didn't have Google as a review search engine. I would just ask parents, hey, who do you go to and why? And they may tell me they're very expensive, but I go to the brace place. I remember it still, even though my kids have been out of braces for 15 years. I remember the name. I didn't even shop around, and I had a great experience there. And I've long forgotten how much I paid for their treatment. That's what I want. And before you start asking me questions, I think now is that concept is more important than ever. I'll tell you why. Myopia management is becoming much more popular than when you and I first focused on this, even pre-pandemic.
Right.
A lot of practitioners are out there saying, I practice myopia management. Now, that may be atropine, that may be multifocals, that may be Ortho-K, but it doesn't matter. For the consumer, for the parent, this is very confusing. If I can get an Ortho-K lens at my, target or that practitioner across the street, which have good ODs or Costco or lens crafters, these are all very good ODs. Why should I go to Dr. D? He's not open on the weekends. He's not there in the evenings, and he's more expensive. Why? So it's even more important for me to spend time. That's my unique selling proposition with each parent, not only at the consult and the follow-up. So when they leave, they say, it's worth it. And that's what I teach in my workshops. That's what, as doctors, no matter which doctor they see, their experience is similar, even though Dr. Lee, Dr. No, and I practice very differently. So I see patients every 20 minutes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they're all myopia management except for Wednesday morning when I see private pay patients. Ivan sees patients on Monday, Wednesday with me, and Thursday. Noah sees patients with me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with me. So it's very interesting how, like you said, we have 3 doctors focused in myopia management. We even overlap. So on a Wednesday evening, you'll have 3 doctors seeing Ortho-K patients every 20 minutes, almost simultaneously, because we need to see these kids after school between 3:30 and 6 o'clock. So that's why we've learned to kind of isolate those time for kids, and we're all busy seeing Ortho-K kids.
Yeah, I love it. I want to point out the fact that you said you're not working on nights and weekends. I grew up in my parents' Ortho-K practice. My mom was the office manager. My dad was the optometrist. And like our Thursday nights went till 9 or 10 o'clock sometimes.
Right.
We worked Saturdays. We were made ourselves available to those parents when their kids were available. And I would often say that to, up and coming Ortho-K doctors and myopia management doctors. And they would just be like, I can't do that. I don't want to work on Saturdays, or I don't want to stay in the office till 9 or 10. I'm going to go home and be with my family. And I'm like, I get it. Yeah. But I personally didn't know any other way to do it.
Right. But I have to be honest with you. We did the same thing. We were open Saturdays until about 2000, and I despised it. And I only worked every third Saturday. Ivan would work one Saturday, Barry would work another Saturday, I would work third. Yet I still despised it because I had children. I had values outside the practice.
Right.
Same thing with evenings. I worked really hard to get rid of my last evening. I was only working one evening. And the way I do that is to bring on partners that are able to work a little bit later. But also we realize we've reached a level with this. It's quite simple, but it's not easy. When you reach a level, when you talk with patients, word of mouth is the strongest referral source you can ever obtain. It's not Google optimization. It's not Facebook ads, in my opinion. This is my opinion. It's not ads in general. It's not AI generated search engines, etc.
Right.
It's the parent in your exam chair or next to your exam chair that realizes, yes, this doctor is taking good care of my child, not just my child's eyes, my child.
Right. Right.
And if you have enough courage to do it, then a very interesting thing happened. And this is the God's honest truth. We closed Saturdays again on about 2000, so about 12 years in practice. I could tell you that by the end of the year, we were making more net closing on Saturdays than we did the year prior when we were open Saturdays. How can that be? We were at the time grossing $3,000 to $5,000 every Saturday. How can that be? I'll tell you how that could be, is we were more refreshed. Our schedule was more efficient. We dropped insurance plans, so we weren't as busy. So we had more time to spend with the patients that were in our exam chair. So we did a lot of things in hindsight that were very courageous, but really set the tone for our practice now, the trajectory of our practice 20 years later.
Right. And, let's go over how you do this, how you talk to a parent, how you present that you are the best eye care provider for their child, because we're kind of in this weird paradox where,
right,
because of the way that modern healthcare is, patients really have to advocate for themselves nowadays with less and less time with their doctor. My general practitioner, my general doctor, if they don't take the time to go over things with me, I fire them because I want to feel like I matter. So we're in this weird paradox where we have that in play, but also it's a golden opportunity because that's what patients are looking for. Unfortunately, most optometrists do not like talking about themselves. They think they're coming off as too salesy. They have a difficult time establishing a level of expertise or knowledge because, myopia management, Ortho-K specifically, it's rabbit holes within rabbit holes within rabbit holes. It's very intimidating, very daunting. What kind of advice can we give that doc who's just starting out, or maybe they've been doing this for a little while, to gain that confidence and start doing this at like at a level that you're doing it,
Yeah, I have two really key clinical pearls. One is, if you're that busy practitioner, the way we did it is we started dropping the crappy plans. And everybody else, the crappy plans are different for everybody else. So that is very scary because they're going to go to our competitors. So ODs hang on and they'll always give you, and MDs too, give you an excuse. Well, I don't see many patients from that plan, so it doesn't matter. Or, sometimes they'll transition into a dry eye eval or Ortho-K eval or scleral lens eval. Or they'll say, maybe they'll get glasses or contacts. I'll convert them. And those, I think, are excuses for fear. So what we did, I can only tell you what we did, Matt, is we didn't drop all these plans at once. At one time, we had 50 plans. It's unbelievable. Right now, we're down to 2, and I accept none. So what happens is you drop the crappy plans. And by its very nature, you're going to have less patients. I mean, if not, you drop another plan. And that allowed us more time to spend with the patient. So instead of me seeing six checks or exams an hour, it reduced to 3 an hour, every 20 minutes. It's more digestible. The second thing is, I never talk about myself. If you came in, I want to say, Mr. Herzberg, I am very experienced with Ortho-K. I've been doing this for over 2 decades. I will take very good care of your son. That doesn't mean anything, I think. But if it's how I interact with your son and how I take the time to explain the data. So the way I do that, Matt, in a primary care exam, I said, Mr. Herzberg, it seems like Ezra's eyes have progressed. I mean, last year, he was able to see the 20/40 line. Let me show you that. This year, it's 2100. It's still not severe, but I have to tell you, because he's so young, most likely his eyes are going to get worse. And years ago, I used to prescribe stronger glasses, but there are now many alternatives. I'd like to set up a time where we could discuss this, and that's called a consultation. You could go get Ezra's glasses or contacts, but I'd like you and your wife to return with Ezra. I spend about an hour with them. At that point, I'll find out what is the best option for him. It may be glasses, it may be contacts. There's so many options, but I don't have that time right now. And people leave, and you know what? Most do not return for a consultation. So if I was a new OD, I would say that Nick is full of poops, or what is he talking about? Because not every parent is concerned that their children's eyesight is getting worse. But all you need is one parent that says, oh my God, I can't believe my son wears glasses. I started in high school, or I don't wear glasses, or I'm -8. The last thing I want is my child to be -8. That's the parent you want. So my technician, I have a scribe, they take them out there. If they want to fill their glasses, they do. They set up a consultation. They leave a deposit for my consultation. So that separates the people who are not serious, the window shoppers, the ones that's serious. Now there's an out-of-pocket fee. And we do that for vision therapy. If we were dry eye specialists, I would do the exact same thing for dry eye. And then they now have left a deposit. And ready for this, I don't even know if you're aware of this, Matt, because we used to talk pre-COVID or during COVID. I set up a virtual meeting prior to the consultation. And I think this is critically important. That separates me, because when they go home, they're like, what options? What is he talking about? There's glasses, the contacts, it's like, what are you doing? There's consultation? Does insurance cover it? And they meet me. So that deposit's $75. Now, if they're willing to put down $75, then it's not worth my time. And now, even though they're my patient, and most of my consultations are not my patient, we set up the time and say, hey, Mr. Herzberg, Mrs. Herzberg, how are you? I examine Ezra. I want to go through what I found. I want to get some more information. Does he play on the iPad a lot? How much time does he spend outside? Do you find him, always in his room, closing the door to watch YouTube or talk to his friends or game, or they're on social media? So all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, this is very different. I've never had my pediatrician set up this kind of talk. It's 20 minutes. And so when Ezra comes in for his eye or his consultation, I don't have to take a history. I can focus totally on the child who is scared to death, whether they're 6 years old or probably 14 years old. That's my sweet spot for Ortho-K and myopia management. They're scared to death or they're inconvenienced. You took me out of school. I'm pissed off. I don't want, excuse the expression, I don't want a lens in my eye. It sounds a lot of work, sounds scary. And now I could say, hey, Ezra, I know so much about you. Your parents were awesome. I know you're in the 5th grade, etc. I know you like to fish, you like to game, whatever the case may be. Let me tell you what today's about. And I show them the eye chart. If they're 2100, I show them the 2100. If they're -4, I show them 24. And I said, right now, you can't see that, and you're 10 years old. And the only reason your parents brought you here, now the parents are in the room.
Yeah.
The only reason you're here is because we feel as you go through puberty, as you go through your teenage years, as you go through high school, your vision's probably going to get worse. And there's nothing worse than every year going to the doctor and getting stronger glasses that are thick, contact lenses that need to stay in your eye if you want it to see. So the only reason you're here is for me to find out what is the best solution for me to slow down your eyes from getting worse. Parents are shaking their head. And at that point, you see what I'm doing? I'm solidifying a trust, a relationships that built on trust. So even if you open up across the street from me, Matthew, and you have 20 years experience, if you don't establish this trust, even though you may be a better fitter than me, but what you're not better at is making sure the parents understand, I'm going to do the best I can, not only to take care of your child's eyes, but your whole child. That means discussing sleep, discussing false eyelashes, if that's the case, screen time, because I'll take the time not to scold your child, but to basically tell your child, as your eye doctor, I feel it's better to leave your phone outside your room when you're sleeping, for example.
All right, let's transition to Supercharge. Vision by Design is scheduled for late October.
That's
Supercharge
correct.
is been an integral part of Vision by Design going way back. And I want you to talk about, because Nick, speaking of J&J, my favorite account was one just outside of Kansas City. And whenever I would visit an account for Johnson & Johnson, whether they were in Chicago or, wherever, I would sit down with them and I would say, walk me through your journey. How did you start? What kind of troubles did you face? What kind of obstacles? Were there any successes? Do you feel like things are going good? If so, when did it start to click? My favorite account referenced Supercharge as that pivotal moment where the doctors went to Supercharge Your Practice, and they had been doing myopia management before that. They had seen limited forms of success, but after they attended Supercharge Your Practice, they were like, it just opened everything up, and you could see that that they were confident that their practice had changed. They knew what they were doing. Everything was in place, and so, I want to ask you, what is the magic of Supercharge? I know that, you've run it every year at Vision by Design. I have had people come to me when I ran Vision by Design, and they would say, is there any way I can get into Supercharge? I'm like, I'm sorry, it's full. They're like, what do I have to do? I'm like, well, it's not through me, it's through Nick. You got to talk to Nick. But my understanding is it's full up because it's limited attendance. What is the magic of Supercharge?
Yeah, the magic is the attendees. Let me give you some backdrop. It started with your dad being gracious enough to let me give this workshop in 2006 during a Vision by Design. And the attendees were amazing. They were there. Like they say, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. So it was, like you said, so successful that I said, okay, I'm going to do this at the AOA meeting. I'm going to do this at the Academy meeting. I'll do it at this meeting, and it'll be just as successful. And I get 1, 2, or 3 attendees. So the success, the magic, as anticlimactic as it sounds, is the person in attendance. And that's why I feel myopia management. And when I interviewed your dad in my podcast, Dare to Be Different, back in the day, he says, I asked him, will myopia management become mainstream or will it remain a subspecialty? And he was one of the very few, because he does it, say it's going to stay a subspecialty, because it takes a special eye practitioner who's able to cater to the parent who's interested in myopia management for their child. Remember, I started by saying, just because a child's myopic and just because their myopia is progressing, don't be fooled that every parent is going to want to do something about it. I always use it in my talks. We all know there's a obesity epidemic, and we know that we should be treating our children and ourselves and eating a certain way, but we don't. And there's many reasons for it. So it's not just because their child is becoming progressively more myopic and it's associated with a lot of ocular pathologies. You're misguided if you think every parent's going to join the bandwagon. So the OD who Ortho-K clicks and they come to Supercharge, they're engaged. They're engaged because they left their practice, which is costly. They paid an admission fee, hotels, tuition fee for Supercharge, which is different. So now they are leveraged. I better learn something here because I am leveraged, man. And consequently, they are engaged with me. This year, I think it's on a Wednesday. What's changed since you were part of it is it's now a full day course. It used to be 4 hours. And if you remember, I used to start at 7. I used to ask you, Matt, can I start earlier, please? And you go, no, Nick, I'm sorry. The vendor's dinner is here. And here I am, 1 a.m. now, screaming at these poor people. And probably the hotel was screaming at you because they had this crazy guy screaming at 1 a.m. And so I said, this is enough. I can't do it justice. Because what's interesting over the past 20 years, I started this in 2006, so it's almost 20 years, is that the topics are identical. Fee development, how do I charge for this thing? Marketing, patient care, staff management, and of course, goal setting. But the answers have changed over the past 20 years. How I do things have to evolve.
Right.
But the main topics, you said it best. I guess because you've lived it. The two main problems, challenges, I should say, that every practice has is cash flow and staff. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even matter if you're in optometry or not. And I address those, but how I address them has evolved continually. Just after the pandemic, my practice had to transition just because the sheer nature of, number one, the demand, but also how many practitioners out there are saying they do myopia management.
Right.
So I had to evolve. And that's why I think in this particular practitioner who said it changed him or her life, they were ready. It wasn't me. I give the same topic to the 50 in attendance or whatever it may be. That doctor, if you said, hey, doc, you're screwing up because you're not talking to the parent, you're just looking at the fit, they're not going to listen to you anyway. They are who they are. So that's the success of Supercharge. The people who are willing to sacrifice, to come to it, to take the day off, hotel, airfare, closing their practice, and paying the tuition, they are the ones who are ready to learn.
Yeah, it's had resounding success. Like if you go to superchargeyourpractice.com, there's testimonials. I've been to your website numerous times. You have great testimonials, video testimonials, quotes from all of these people, and you're constantly refreshing it too. That's what I love the most about it. And from my perception of people are having fun at Supercharge Your Practice. When you talk about the late hours that we used to hold it, the time slots for it back in the day, I always felt really bad about it. That's when we had the time to do it. And right. Managing a meeting is serious business, but
it is,
you brought, and I assume you're still bringing it, obviously, this level of energy that is incredible, where you have them up clapping and dancing. At one point you were having them chopping boards. I don't know if you're still doing that. And I've asked people after it, what did that feel like? And they're like, it just feels so good. Yeah. It's like you take these other workshops where they just may be sitting in a room. Maybe there's food, maybe there isn't. They're tired. You're learning stuff. You have them engaged and energized. And I think that's a huge part of it, just at least from an outsider perspective looking in. So, yeah. All right. So what else have we learned about the modern practitioner over those 20 plus years? Cause you said things have changed for sure. So I want to press you a little bit more on that. What kinds of things have changed? Can you give us an example or two of something from before and now?
100%. So let's just talk some of the material, and then I want to talk to you about attendees because both have changed. So last year, a big section of my Supercharge course was talking about virtual assistants, how I hire them, how they could hire them. What do the virtual assistants do? Virtual assistants, Matt, I don't know if you're familiar with them. Basically, they either work in the States or outside the States at a reduced fee sometimes, and they work virtually. And I did a good section, not an hour, but a good chunk of it was how they have done a lot of the practice management things that I do to keep patients engaged in my practice. This year, we've let 50% go, and replace them with AI. So it has to evolve the content. So again, the marketing is the same. You need to talk to your patients, you need to correspond with them, but the way we do now has to evolve. Where I used to do it myself 20 years ago, now it's slowly transitioning to me still doing it, but AI doing the grunt work. But quite fascinating for me. The attendees have changed. So it used to be fitters, just like you named, experienced fitters that just want to take their practice to a new level. So they were my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, but we're kind of warriors. And now the level of intelligence has skyrocketed. They're much younger. The genders have changed. It seems like I'm maybe 75% female, 25% male, which is interesting. They already have learned, not even the hard way, probably accepting insurance and working under the guidelines that they give me, being audited by them, is not why I entered optometry. So they're younger. To me, they're more intelligent, certainly much more intelligent than me. They're keen, and now they're more courageous. Whereas I still do the karate and I still do the DJs and all this stuff because I need to keep them engaged for 4 to 6 to 8 to 12 hours. But now I notice that when I did this board break, and what are having people go through boards? Because I'm trying to talk about faith and fear. Those are two very powerful emotions we have. Fear guides most of my life. I am afraid of loss. I'm afraid of loss of money, of relationships, etc., patience. And faith of having faith that, yes, if I drop this insurance, my life is not going to come to an end. If I open up my practice, yes, it may not succeed, but I have the faith that will do it. And that's why we use the analogy of board breaking for this. It's not a trick. It's a very good analogy to show people that, yes, you could hurt your hand, but because we've trained you with professionals, you're not, unless you're afraid. So what's changed? The attendees are younger, smarter. Some of the genders have changed. They're there to make a change. It's not like, Nick, show me what to do and I will do it, or tell me what to do and patients will come. They're taking ownership. Hey, this is my practice. And despite the economy, despite what's going on the outside, all I can control is myself. And that's a good thing, because if I change myself, I'll change my practice. And that's why I finish up the workshop over an hour where attendees set goals for themselves, and they're based on values. So if your value is your family, then we need to make sure optometry feeds your family, doesn't detract from your family, for example.
I love it. Yeah. And I think that speaks directly to that modern optometrist. They are,
yes,
a lot of the modern optometry students, when they get out on their own, saddled with debt, private practice has been waning over the years. A lot more docs are having to get into retail optometry or become an associate or whatever the case may be. And, there's been that paradigm shift, but they're not just okay with, well, which is better, one or two? I'll see you next year. Your eyes got worse. More and more of them want something more, but they also want more out of life. And I think that Supercharge speaks directly to that. I think it always kind of has spoken, because, you're saying that the attendees have changed, but we were also talking about how, there's a specific kind of person for myopia. I call it the myopia mindset. And it makes me wonder if we ever will get past specialty to mainstream, because we have that flow of new generation coming out. Are they going to get trapped in the machine? Are they not going to be able to push their way through? Or are we going to have more and more of these, intelligent professionals who are not satisfied with the status quo? And are they going to change the face of myopia management as we know it? Vision by Design this year, October 22nd through the 25th. It's in Palm Beach, Florida.
That's right.
AAOMC.org is where you find out more about the Academy. Supercharge Your Practice .com is how you find out more information and register for Supercharge. And you should definitely go to VBD. You should definitely go to Supercharge. Nick, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you, Matt.
on.
Be well. Wish you the best of success in every sense of the word.
Thank you. And for everybody else, we will see you at the next one.